Alright, so let's try this again. Alright, so I actually just started filming. My battery had like 80%, and then I guess the shop is haunted because the battery drained from 80 to 0 instantly. So that's awesome. Anyway, what are we doing today? Tonight, this morning? Well, currently, let me check my watch real quick. Yeah, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, but when you work at night like I do, it really doesn't make any difference what time it is. So I've got a few days off, which is weird, but I've got a few days off, and before I have to go to Nashville, then I come back from Nashville, then I have to go to Utah, then I come back from Utah, then I got to go back to Boston, and then I got to come back from Boston, and then at some point I got to go to Idaho, Nebraska, Brian Poole, I'm talking to you, Nebraska, and possibly Northern California where the Sasquatch roam. But, so what I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of traveling, so I need to film while the filming's good. That's what I'm saying. What are we doing today? Well, there's lots to unpack here. There's lots to babble about, lots to ramble about. So we're just going to, this video might be an hour long. It might be 30 minutes long. I might film multiple different videos. I don't know. I have a video that I filmed a few days ago that I'm probably not going to post because probably what I'm going to tell you here is just going to be redundant if I post the other one, and there's no reason. So we'll just do this one. We won't worry about that other video. So as far as the 1960 Willys goes, my brother's truck, as far as it goes, this is what's going on right now. Okay, so we have the bed obviously taken off the rig. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what'd you do that for, Red Clay Traveler? Well, there's a couple reasons. We got to put a new gas tank in it. We got to run new brake lines. We got to run new fuel lines. We got to do all kinds of crap. We need to kind of clean the frame just a touch and restore it with some Rust-Oleum spray paint. There's a couple different things we need to do. And it makes it easier to find new problems that are wrong with the unit if you can access said area. Now, let's start with the good. What's good? Well, what's good is the frame on this truck is it's pretty good. It's not as good as Jubal, but it's pretty good. It's no damage to it really at all that I can see. Nothing that matters, nothing of consequence, but nice and straight, no bends, no breaks, no severe welding, no none of that nonsense. Not even really any bad pitting or anything. It's actually quite impressive. It's not as good as Jubal. But what is? Okay, what is as good as Jubal? Nothing. Not much, if anything. So, now, as far as the bad, what is the bad in which Red Clay Traveler speaks? Let me show you. It's easier if I just show you. Let me collapse you down. I know how much y'all like it when I do this, so I'm gonna try to do it smooth. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. So we're gonna try to take it easy. Now, what is bad? Well, when we had this apart, I already knew that this drive shaft had a significant dent in it, but what I didn't know is that it's twisted. Now, it's probably hard for y'all to see. Actually, no, you can see it pretty good. So this area right here is a twist. Okay, where just the sheer power of the straight six just took that drive shaft and just twisted it, because there's just so much raw, unmitigated power that it can't, the drive shaft just couldn't deal with it, okay? That's that problem. Now, fortunately, I know a guy, a handsome, red-bearded man that has at least 2, possibly 3 drive shafts in stock, so that's a non-issue. Doesn't make any difference. Now, what I don't have in stock is any of this action. Okay, now, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but that's not supposed to move violently like that, okay? You shouldn't be able to hear noises. Okay, so this is what we call compromised. The bearings in there are compromised. I guarantee if we took off this cover, there ain't a drop of anything in there but metal and chocolate milk. Okay, so this is effed severely. All right, so I believe that this is a Dana 53. It looks like a Dana 53. It smells like a Dana 53. I think it is a Dana 53. It looks very much like the one I put in Jubal, and Jubal is a Dana 53. So, now, what are we going to do about this? Absolutely nothing. We're not going to do anything about it right now. Mainly because finding a Willys axle that is not like that is not very easy, alright? I went over to South Carolina to find the one that I put in Jubal, and when I got it, it was no good. And ended up having to use another axle that I had. Well, I actually ended up rebuilding it, but it took like 2 other axles and ordering brand new parts to fix it. And it took like 2.5, 3 months. If y'all remember any of those videos, I hadn't really started filming a whole lot yet, but I talk about it in some of the early videos. So there's not really a fast solution to this. Now, we could put a Ford 9-inch in it. But the problem with that is you really need to order like a custom Ford 9-inch with the proper ratio to match the front axle and one that's the proper width. There's also the option of a Toyota axle. The Toyota axles aren't the right width, but from what I understand, they can be made to work. The other option is a Scout 2 rear axle, which I understand. I don't know. I've never done it, but I understand that a Scout 2 axle is only 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches wider than the Willys axle, which in the grand scheme of things matters not. So we might end up getting one of those. But for right now, we're trying to get the truck operational. We're not trying to, make it concur. So we're probably going to leave that and go ahead and get everything else done. And the axle on these trucks and most anything else is rather easy to remove. Unhook some U-bolts, unhook the brake lines, undo the U-joint, and roll that sucker out from underneath it. So it's an issue that doesn't really need to be addressed right now. Should it be addressed right now? Ideally, yeah, it would be. And maybe when Reclay Traveler is vastly wealthy, then we can always address it right out of the gate. But I'm not vastly wealthy, so right now it's probably going to stay like that. Now, it'll probably sound like a 5-piece band playing in there when you're running down the road. Now, fortunately, these trucks rattle so much that you can't discern that noise, so it's really not that important. You just crank up the Ronnie Millsap, maybe some Bee Gees, maybe some ABBA, some Dancing Queen, just crank it up and don't worry about it, okay? That's the easiest solution right now. What else do we have to tell you? There's lots of rambling to be had. We have not put the oil pan on this unit yet because I needed to order the rear main seal. I ordered it. It should theoretically be here today. So if it comes in today, then this evening I will be putting this on because it'd be nice. It's one less thing. So put that on there. We got the gaskets for the pan, all that. We got the new pieces, get most things cleaned up, got these pieces nice and new, ready to go. Pop those on there. So that's what's going on in the front half. Now, I wanted to buy, or my brother, this is my brother's truck, he wanted to buy a new spring kit. I have to talk with him about it because I forgot to look it up. And then I did look it up, and they're proud of these spring kits. My God, man. Like, come on. It's just, it's unreasonable. Now, it does come with all 4, but I kind of hate to buy a spring kit when, ultimately we're going to be having to do something with that rear axle unless I can find a Willys axle that's not effed. So this spring is not the best condition. I think it will still work. But the spring kit for this truck is 200 pesos. It's rather exorbitant, if you ask me. It seems unreasonable. But I don't know. I'll have to talk to him. He may want to buy that. Or I might do a little more looking around and see if I can find a kit that's a wee bit cheaper. Because it's actually like basically, it makes more sense to buy the full brake kit that comes with new drums and shoes, everything, for like $500 than it is to buy just the spring kit. Which we're probably going to end up needing drums too. I don't know. I think the ones we got we can turn, but let's get you extended back out. I'm tired of holding you. But that's something I'll have to chat with my brother about. So, what else is going on? Well, so a few days ago, I was chit-chatting with my best friend, Brian, all right? He's the one you've seen in some of my camping videos and whatnot, and I was chatting with him, and I was lamenting the fact that Jubal, my blessed 1949 Willys truck, is what I refer to as a stuffed animal. Now, what do I mean by a stuffed animal? I mean, it's damn good looking. It's pretty to look at. It's really nice. It looks good. It is good. But it's not really good for anything. All right. Now, I know you're probably pulling a gun. You're getting your Bowie knife out right now. Just calm down. All right, calm down. What I'm saying is I would drive Jubal every damn day if I could, but Jubal tops out at 35. And when I say he tops out at 35, I mean he is screaming. Okay, that's balls out, all right? Like on the old steam engines when you had the ball governor and when you were just giving it the beans, balls out. All right, that's where that comes from, by the way. Anyway, he's screaming. He's wound up tighter than a banjo string. And it's just not pleasant to drive. And where I live at is just endless hills because we're in the foothills of Appalachia, baby. And so it's just... there's just hills everywhere. And Jubal, if you hit an incline of any kind, you wouldn't even know it if you were walking up it, all right? Jubal knows, and he doesn't like it, and he starts hemorrhaging speed. And the last time I tried to drive him on the road, I was driving him at night. There wasn't really even any traffic, and I was still able to get multiple cars hung up behind me just pissed off, all right? So what I'm saying is he's not practical to drive. That's why I don't drive him much, is because he runs amazing. All right, the L-head runs amazing, but he just can't get out there and swing it. All right, now if I lived on my 4,000 acre farm, my vast empire, if I had that, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd just drive Jubal out there on the farm and not worry about it. But I want to enjoy Jubal. I bought Jubal to enjoy. I've got a lot of money tied up in Jubal. All right, I don't regret one penny of it. But I was telling my buddy, I'm like, I would very much like to maybe repower Jubal. I know. You're saying, Brick Clay Traveler, my God, man, what has happened to you? Have you struck your head? No. What it is I never wanted a 4-cylinder Willys truck. And this is why I didn't want one. All right, this truck of my brother's, it's got the straight 6 in it. This sucker, it'll go 55, 50, 55, something like that. I've drove it just a little bit before we started tearing into it, and you could tell you get up to speed. I got up to 35 without even really trying. So, now 55 isn't fast by no means, but it's fast enough to drive on most normal roads around town. Most places I want to go. The 4-cylinder is a damn good engine. The Go Devil's a good engine for the Jeeps, for the 2As, 3As, for the military Jeeps. In my opinion, it should have never been put in the trucks. Now, it was put in the trucks and wagons and stuff because they didn't have anything else at the time. The 226 hadn't been developed yet by Continental. It didn't exist quite yet, so there wasn't really a better option that Willys had at the time. And it was fine back in the 40s when the roads weren't paved and nobody was in a big hurry and you didn't want to go fast on these old dirt, tar, gravel roads anyway. But it's not like that anymore, unfortunately. So what is the solution? Well, I got to looking around on Marketplace, and a gentleman down in northern Florida had a Dauntless V6. Now, y'all have heard me ramble about Dauntless V6s before. I'm quite a fan of them. I like them. I haven't got to be around them a whole lot, but I do enjoy the name. I enjoy the legacy that the Dauntless V6 has. It's got quite a storied history. I think they even raced him at the Indy, at the, like there was some like serious stuff, Indy racing and stuff that they did with the Dauntless V6. It's a pretty respectable engine. It produces 170 horsepower and 235 foot-pounds of torque, I believe, which is pretty impressive. That's on par with a normal base model 350, Like that's not much off from a 350 with 2 more cylinders. Like it's pretty impressive. But why do I want a Dauntless V6? Well, I remember, I believe Matt J, I think you said that I should just go ahead and put a 350. If I was going to swap an engine, I should go ahead and put a 350. I understand why you say that. And for practical reasons, as far as accessibility to parts and things like that, you're 100% correct. My issue is I don't want to do anything to Jubal that I can't undo. If I put a 350 in him, every one of these trucks I've ever seen with a 350 in them, they had to cut the firewall. In one case, they beat the firewall back with a hammer to clear the distributor. Because as we know, GM put the distributor in the wrong location. But, nobody's perfect. Anyway, I don't want to do that. I'm not cutting Jubal's firewall. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to beat it with a hammer either. It's not going to happen. I want to do as minimal modification to Jubal as possible. So, a Dauntless V6 comes out. The Dauntless V6 fits in the engine bay very nicely. I don't have to cut the firewall. It produces more than enough horsepower than what I want. With this in there, with my stock gearing, I should be able to go. And I'm going to underestimate, just to be conservative here, should be able to go respectably 55, 60 all day long. All right? The Dauntless has a higher RPM range than the L-Heads. The L-Heads RPM range is like, I think it's screaming at 3,000, 3,500. The Dauntless, from what I can tell, is around 4,500 RPM. Now, that's not a crazy jump, but it's producing dramatically more power. The L-Head had 65 horsepower when it was brand new. That's not, a lot to work with. So, and Jubal has that flatbed on him. That's all oak and steel. All right, that flatbed's dramatically heavier than the stock Willys bed. So you got to take that into consideration. Jubal's got more weight on him to start with because he's a flatbed. So I went down there, met with the gentleman, looked at the engine. He had videos of it running. It's in remarkably good shape. It's hooked to a T86 3-speed, which is almost an identical transmission to a T90. All right. And it has a Dana 20 transfer case, which is dangerously similar to a Dana 18 transfer case. It is different, but the case and everything is more or less the same. So, went down there. It's a good price, good looking engine. I bought it. All right. Now, I was going to originally bought it with intentions of maybe putting it in the 2-wheel drive Willys. But I've put the kibosh on that, and there's a reason. The reason why is Jubal has already had a ridiculous amount of work done to him. Work that y'all never got to see. You've heard me ramble about it, but you never got to see it. So Jubal's had his axles completely rebuilt. He has disc brakes installed on the front that work well. It has a dual master cylinder on it. It's been converted to 12 volt, which won't matter because this is already going to be 12 volt, the Dauntless. But regardless, I'm saying I've done a lot of work. It's got a brand new fuel system, new fuel lines, new brake lines. It's got, everything's ready. The 2-wheel drive Willys does not. The 2-wheel drive Willys would need all new brakes, all new fuel system, figure out how to upgrade to a disc brake situation in the front if you're going to put more horsepower on it where it'll actually move at a more of a gallop, So for practicality, it would make more sense to put the Dauntless in Jubal. Now, what am I going to have to do to Jubal to get it ready for this? Well, number one is we got to get this truck out of the way. And once we get this truck out of the way, we'll pull the CJ5 in here because there's a couple things we got to do to it, and then it's done for what I want to do to it. So I got the rear bumper and tire carrier for it finally. I've got the rack, roof rack I told y'all I ordered. I've got that. So I've got to put that all on the Jeep. I'm going to remove the hard top on it. and do some work, do a couple things, put some nut zerts in so I can attach the hardtop better and easier, make it stronger, and then put that bumper and tire carrier on it, put the roof rack on it, and then the CJ5, for all practical purposes now, is where I want it to be. It's got plenty of things that needs done to it, fine touches, put a radio in it, maybe get some gauges working would be neat. Maybe some windshield wipers might be handy, but as far as what I want it to do for right now, that'll finish it up. Once it's done, which that should only take a couple days, once that's done, we're going to pull Jubal in here. We're going to take his hood, his grill, his fenders off, and we're going to pull the L head and drivetrain out of it. Now, I know you've got to be emotional. Some of you don't care. Some of you are like, right on, Red Clay Traveler, it's about time. It's not easy for me. I really, really like these trucks original, and that's why it's important for me to do it in a way that if I decide that I want to put him back original, that I don't have a whole mess of crap that I have to fix to get it back original. I'm going to do my best. Like I say, this will be the first time I've ever repowered something because I've always kept things original and it's never bit me before. I'm going to have to either cut off the engine mounts, the original engine mounts, or I possibly can just leave them there, which is what I would prefer to do. And I'm going to have to buy the kit from Novak or from Advanced Adapters that's made to hold the Dauntless V6. So that's no issue. That kit's like $180. It comes with everything to mount the engine. Now, what transmission are we going to use? Well, I originally was going to pair the Dauntless to the T90, but my T90 is a short shaft T90, and you have to have a long shaft T90. This truck, this one, has a long shaft T90 in it. My truck has a short shaft because mine's old and it's hooked to a 4-cylinder. So for practical reasons and for speed, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hook it to the original T90. I'm going to pull the T90 L head Dana 18 transfer case out of my truck, set it off to the side. We're not throwing it away. Don't worry about that. We'll probably end up putting it in a CJ2A or something because it's a damn good setup. That drivetrain's good. It's just not strong enough for my truck. But it's more than good enough for a 2A, a 3A, M38, whatever. And we're going to run this T86. Now, any of y'all that are familiar with T86s are going to say, well, a T86 is a piece of trash, Red Clay Traveler. I'm aware that it's not the best transmission in the world. I'm aware of that, okay? But I would have to imagine that it's at least as good as the T90, possibly lacking slightly. I'm not going to drive this truck like an asshole. I'm going to drive it, off-road and on the road with some sense, all right? We're not trying to prove anything. So we're going to leave that. We're going to leave the Dana 20. Now, if you look at this truck's axle is slightly offset to the passenger. Very little, not much. And it runs up here. I can't show you right now, but the transfer case, this drive shaft hooks to the transfer case, which is also offset. The Dana 20 that's on this engine, the Dauntless V6, is not offset. It's actually in the center. So, but it's not, you're not really moving anything. So if anything, all you'd be doing, if you look at the back of this truck, that axle is veering, or the drive shaft is veering off this way. When I hook Jubal's drive shaft up, it'll be just straight. So it won't put it in a bind or any severe drive angle differences or anything. It'll just take it from like that to like this. And honestly, I think it'll be fine. I don't think it'll hurt anything. I don't know why it would. The Dana 20, depending on who you ask, is either stronger than a Dana 18. The case itself is certainly stronger, but it's dimensionally almost identical. Its shape is almost identical. Now, the T86 is the same case as a T90. They use very, very similar parts in some areas, and in other areas inside, they use identical parts. It basically is an updated T90. It's 3-speed, same shift pattern, top load, same everything. I mean, it's disturbingly similar to a T90, and it's very often confused. It even mounts almost identical to a T90. The Dana 20 transfer case mount's a little bit different, but I don't think it'll be a problem. So what I'm saying is the T86 that's hooked to this Dauntless should sit in almost the identical position as the T90 that's already in my truck. The Dana 20 transfer case should sit dimensionally in the exact same location as my Dana 18 that's in my truck. So that means as far as placement of the engine in there and how we're going to hold up the transmission transfer case should be quite easy. It should be a lot easier than it would be other things, because if you put a 350 in a Willys, you want to put it as close to the firewall as you possibly can. Now, the Dauntless is actually, I think, lighter than the L-head. From what I've read, it weighs anywhere from like 350 to 400 pounds. I think the L-heads are pushing 450 or something like that, so it's actually lighter. That's another reason why I want it. It's not going to put so much stress on my front leaf springs and shocks. It's not going to put so much stress on my wheel bearings, and it's not going to make it steer like hammered crap. Because all we're talking about doing is changing this. We've already got good brakes on Jubal. The steering on Jubal is fine. So if we put this lighter engine in it, we drive it like we got some sense, then we should be able to do this without having to modify steering. We've already got the brakes. We don't have to butcher the engine compartment all to pieces. The most we'll probably have to do as far as the engine compartment's concerned, other than wiring, is the motor mount situation, which is really not that big a deal. Now, Jubal's not going anywhere anyway, so if I end up having to cut the motor mounts off of Jubal and put these on there, I don't want to do that, but I'm willing to do that because Jubal's not going anywhere. The whole point of all this is so that Jubal can be driven every day, all right? I would sleep in Jubal. I would drive him every single day. I'm telling you, every day, all right? And that's the whole point of this. I want to drive Jubal. I bought him to enjoy him. The world should get to see how great Jubal is. And the Dauntless V6 is going to make that possible. All right, now this Dauntless V6, it's outside, or I would show it to you, but it's cold. It's cold as a witch's extremity in a brass bra. It's as cold as a brass toilet seat on the shady side of an iceberg, so I don't feel like going out there right now. It already has a high-energy ignition on it, so it's already got the good distributor on it. It's got a pretty dang new carburetor on it. The engine is in overall very, very good shape. It came out of a Commando, like a 67, I think, Commando, that had about 65,000, 67,000 miles on it. Now, I know what you're saying. That could have rolled over reckless. Well, okay, yeah, it could have, but I don't know very many people that are driving Jeepster Commandos 165,000 miles. Okay, so it's probably got 65,000 on it. In the video, it's running good. It's not smoking or anything. Can't hear any knocking. Talked to the man. Very nice dude. He said that it ran good. It didn't knock or rattle. He said the transmission shifted good. It feels fine when you shift it. And rebuilding the Dauntless, in my opinion, would be far more practical as far as spending the money than rebuilding an L-head. Rebuilding an L-head is ridiculously expensive unless you can do all of the work yourself. I would love to be able to do all the work myself, but I don't have a machine shop set up in here. So last time I priced rebuilding one, you're looking at like $3,500 to get 65 horsepower. I'm sorry, the math just doesn't add up. But I wouldn't be opposed to rebuilding a Dauntless. So even if the Dauntless took a screaming death, 3 years from now, I would just rebuild it. I'd just have it rebuilt because it'd be worth it. The only issue that I see with the Dauntless as it sits right now is the freeze plugs. A couple of them have been replaced with the temporary, screw-in kind. I'm not overly thrilled about that, but, they more than likely just rotted out because these, it's a steel freeze plug. It's very thin. It probably just started leaking. Somebody took it out and put one of these in there. Or it's possible that it froze and it pushed them out, which if that's the case, that's not ideal, but the block doesn't appear to be cracked. It ran fine, no issues. The guy pulled it out of the Commando because he was in the middle of a restoration on it. pulled it out, and then he ended up selling the Commando because this other guy saw it, wanted it, but didn't want the original drivetrain, so he was left with the drivetrain, and then he ended up selling it to me. So I've got to get some freeze plugs for it. I'm probably going to scuff it up a little bit, paint it one color. The transmission and transfer case are in very good shape. I don't see any major oil leaks or anything. I'm going to change the clutch in it before we put it in Jubal, just because I don't want to deal with that later. So we'll go ahead and put a brand new clutch in it before we mount it up in the truck. And I don't think we'll have any other problems. I believe that it'll be good. The only other issue I could see, and I've already found a solution to it, is the manifolds on this thing go two different directions. So on the driver's side manifold is coming out facing forward, the exhaust manifold. The one on the passenger side comes out facing rear, so they're literally opposite of each other. That doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, but that's the way they made it. But in terms of saving space in the engine bay, I believe it's Novak makes some what they call engine hugger exhaust manifolds, where they just come straight out, 3 individual pipes come down, join into one unit, and they hug the side of the engine all the way down, and then you can run them out the back. They're really not that expensive. You can buy the fancy ones that are all dipped in chrome and gold and uranium or whatever. They're pretty high, but just like your standard untreated pipes, they're like $350. So I'll probably end up buying those, put those on there just for sake of ease, and I think it would look cleaner, so that we can run dual exhaust on Jubal, because I think that'd be pretty sick. The Dauntless V6 sounds good. It sounds way meaner than it is. It sounds like a bigger engine than it is. So, and it's odd fire, so it's got a good sound to it. So yeah, that's where we're at on Jubal. Like I say, his drivetrain will go into something else. It's never leaving my possession, so it's going to go into another Jeep that probably like a 2A or a 3A or an M38, preferably a 2A, or like an MB or something like that. So it ain't going anywhere, and it'll be in another Jeep in the future. You can't have too many L-heads laying around. I've passed up on a lot of Jeeps because they didn't have an engine in them, and finding an L-head's not easy where I'm at. Up north and the Midwest, a lot of guys find them in generators and stuff where they were using them in the big factories, or using them up in the logging fields and stuff like that. And people using them for generators, I guess, in the winter or whatever, power stuff. But down here, they're hard to find. So it'll be nice to have an L head just sitting around ready. And I've already got an F head just over there too. Now that F head, I probably am going to go ahead and still put that in the 2-wheel drive Willys, which that was now the 2-wheel drive Willys is pushed on down the road. But that's where we're at. Now, I've already made up my mind to do this, or at least attempt to do it. Now, feel free to chastise me in the comments, tell me I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. That's all fine. I don't expect any of y'all to do that, because of all this time that I've been doing this channel, all these videos I've done, I can count the number of bad comments I've had, and really I haven't had any that were actually bad. Some asinine comments, but nothing really bad. I can count them on one hand. So what I'm saying is we've got a really good group of guys and girls here that are on the channel that follow and watch these videos. All y'all are extremely helpful, and I appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you, and I love you all. I love you all, okay? So, but, if you've done a Dauntless V6 swap into a Willys truck, give me some pointers, I've been doing a lot of research about it. I think it's very doable. So, and this was a very popular swap they did back in the day. I know a gentleman farther up in North Georgia who's done a Dauntless swap in a Willys, and according to him, it was the greatest thing he'd ever done, and that it made his truck so much more drivable, but kept it original looking. You didn't have to modify the suspension or anything. He didn't modify the steering, from what I remember him saying, and he said that it just made it was the greatest thing he ever did, and so he just buys Dauntless V6s every time he sees them if they're around, because he keeps them to put in Willys trucks and stuff. So and it's still in the Jeep family, loosely. You know, it was made by Jeep, but it's just a Buick V6 they bought the rights to make, but still. So I'm actually pretty excited about it because I would very much like to enjoy Jubal more. So this is how the Reclay Traveler is going to attempt to enjoy Jubal more. I don't know when I'm going to have the time to do all this stuff because, like I say, I'm going to be traveling so much, but I'm going to do the best that I can, and we're going to try to get on it. Now, enough rambling, all right? Let's do some Willys stuff, all right? And what are we going to do to the Willys? We're going to see if I'm going to touch up these spots of rust on the frame a little bit with the wire wheel, and if I can find some black spray paint, I think I got a couple cans somewhere around in here. We're going to shoot it black and live our best life. So let's do a little bit of that action, and then I'll close you out here in a minute and do a little light duty rambling about maybe some history or something, because I've been doing some heavy research on some other stuff that has nothing to do with anything we've ever talked about, theoretically. So, yeah. Let's buff this off, this little bit of rust along through here, and go from there. There we go. All right. Oh, don't forget to safety squint when you use this, okay? These Willys always have, oh, there we go, always have some rust spots back here on the end of the frame where some different parts mount. They always have some stuff like that. But this truck's actually not that bad, so. I think some of these trucks have the, I'm sorry, you can't see anything. Some of these trucks have the serial number mounted on the frame in different places. Usually I hear it's on the passenger side front, but this has a serial number right here, which I'd have to look at the data plate to see if it matches. It very well might. It might be the serial number. I don't know. I know it's supposedly on the front passenger side of the frame somewhere. I've never actually seen it there, but I've never seen it on any truck I've had, but also haven't really looked that much. Yep, that's it. That's pretty neat. I ain't never seen that. So yeah, that's the serial number stamped in the frame right here. So on this truck, this is a 60. It's stamped right here. I'll try to get you where you might see something. On this truck, it's stamped right here behind the passenger tire. So right here. That's really good to know for future reference, because I have bought some trucks in the past that didn't have a data plate. Now, there's places you can buy data plates I've had to buy one in the past that was exact serial number, not a fake serial number, because the data plate on my truck was damaged. But I had the title and the data plate. Everything was fine. So, and it's identical replica to the original data plate. So, like, say I bought this truck. I'm not giving legal advice, okay? In some states, I believe this is illegal. It may be all states. I don't know. It depends on how much you care about the government. Anyway, but like say this truck didn't have its data plate, then we know that this is the serial number for this truck. So you could use that number and get you a new data plate, theoretically, if you wanted to. Anyway, that's really cool, actually. I'm happy to see that. Side note, randomly, that's about all the rust right here I wanted to do. I don't even know if I can find the paint. Side note, this truck was green, obviously. You can see it right there. Now, what you want to do when you're getting ready to paint something, when you want to do that paint prep work, when you want to just really lean in there and get it ready for some serious paint work, is what you want to do is not remove the green paint. Okay, don't dare remove this paint. Don't even consider it. In fact, just shoot primer half-assedly all over it, and don't even scuff the paint. Don't even waste your time. Okay, just spray primer all over it. Yeah, that's what they did. So we're gonna have to sandblast this to get it back down to where we can actually paint it, because the guy that I bought it from didn't even bother to do a modicum of legitimate prep work. Now, this is the only guy that I've actually ended up buying a truck from that I was not fond of. This guy was not friendly. He was very, very mean to his grandson in front of us. And I've always found that men, especially men, I know women also are mean to children, but me as a man, it bothers me even more when men do it, because I also am a man. Anyway, if he talked to his grandson and that way about his grandson to us, I could only imagine the way that he treated that poor young man while we weren't there. And I have always found that the way that you can judge men's character, speaking about men here specifically, once again, the way you can judge a man's character is how he talks about his wife, his children, or his grandchildren when they aren't around, when there's nobody to hear them. And I found that the men that I have grown close to that were really good friends of mine, the ones I gravitate towards are ones that speak very highly of their children and their wife. One of my closest friends down at the cigar shop was a man named John Coleman. He was a Vietnam veteran, all-around damn fine American, and he talked about his wife as if she literally was the creator of the universe, and it was the most wonderful thing. I could sit there and listen to him talk about his wife for as long as he wanted to, and he did it all the time. So it was amazing. We'd sit there and talk about, mainly he'd just tell me about how great she is, and that was the greatest thing that he'd ever done, and that he married her, and that he could have kids with her, and it was just the greatest thing that he'd ever done. And that they were married, I think, up until he passed away. I think they were married for 50 years or 45 years, something like that. And I only got to meet her once, but it was one of them relationships that you could tell that it was just right, that they belonged together. I know a few people like that down there, and I gravitate towards people like that don't take their vows that they take before God and man lightly. I've known lots of men that I worked with that thought that it was an achievement to have affairs and all these kind of things. And I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm just telling you that if a man or a woman, if they're willing to betray the one that they vowed their life to before God and man, they will betray you. Okay, I have found that to be the case. The people that have screwed me over, that I've done deals with and stuff, I've found that if they won't honor the little things, they won't honor anything. So, yeah, that was a little ramble. But anyway, ties in. This guy was very horrible, very rude to his grandson. I didn't like the way he talked to him at all. And I certainly didn't like the way he talked to him in front of me and my friend as we picked up this truck. So, I'm glad we got this truck away from that hostile environment, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So we're going to have to sandblast it, get it ready for paint, but we can worry about that after we get this whole arena done. Well, there's a lot of rambling in this video. We're already 47 minutes in. We're just rambling. I'm giving y'all some stuff. We're doing good on subscribers, by the way. I think we're at 955. So if we can squeak out 1,000 before the new year, I would greatly appreciate it. Tell your grandma, tell your friends. All right, tell them about the Reclay Traveler. All right. I look forward to hitting 1,000. I know we're gonna hit it in the new year, even if we don't hit it before the new year. It's inevitable. I'm like Thanos. It's inevitable. We're gonna hit 1,000. I also had this hat made the other day because I wanted one for myself and to show y'all because I'm going to give away some of this kind of stuff in the giveaway. So this is a pretty nice beanie. The only problem with it is it's big enough to stretch over a 5-gallon bucket for some reason. I don't know why. There's my bald head. I've got a rather large head, all right? I'm like not bashful about it. It's very large. But this thing is big on me, man. Now I look like Zach Brown. Anyway, but it is very warm and it is made well. It's just rather large. So I probably won't order any more like this, but they will look very similar to this. And this, I'm going to give away one of these, a regular hat, and some other things. Maybe another couple custom things, one-off things, one-of-a-kind things in the giveaway when we hit 1,000. But we're not talking about that anymore because we're not at 1,000 yet, are we? So, yeah. Now, history-wise, what are we going to talk about? We got to squeeze a little bit in. Let's just make it a full hour. How about that? Anyway, I've been doing an obscene amount of listening to first-hand accounts about the JFK assassination. Now, you've heard me ramble about various wide-ranging topics of history, from the Aztecs to Civil War, World War II, all kinds of crap. But, Jack the Ripper, stuff like that. But I find the JFK assassination particularly interesting, and I always have. And I know this might shock you, but I'm not on board with the agreed-upon outcome that people say, well, let's say that the Warren Commission said. There's something rotten in Denmark, or something rotten in Dallas, shall we say. But my views on Kennedy are really rather irrelevant. There was plenty of things about Kennedy that I do not like, and there's plenty of things about Kennedy that I do like. Which I think is a healthy standpoint for most any political figure. They are not meant to be worshipped. They are not meant to be idolized. They are not meant to be someone to aspire to be like, or really anything like that. They work for us. We elect them. They are meant to serve us. Okay, so I don't really like the idolization of any political figure, no matter president, senator, what have you. Now, Kennedy and what occurred at Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, is it's horrible, right? Nobody should get their head shot off in broad daylight in front of thousands of people. Certainly not a man that had I think he had two very small children at the time. It's not anything that anybody should want, all right? But my interest lies in the complete failure of the government structure after Kennedy's assassination. The investigation into Kennedy's assassination was not handled well. Okay, it was not. It was not handled well. There is a document that was released a few years ago, I believe, or it was just recently released. It's been released in the last 4 years. Anyway, in it, J. Edgar Hoover, who, if you know anything about history, J. Edgar Hoover is not a good person. Okay, J. Edgar Hoover, for a significant period of the 20th century in America, he was probably the most powerful living person in America, spanning decades. More powerful than presidents, and he was there. Presidents would come and go. J. Edgar Hoover was still there. J. Edgar Hoover had dossiers on everyone. Now, sometimes the dossier was accurate. They needed a dossier on them, right? They should have had one on them. They were up to some sketchy stuff. But a lot of people he had dossiers on, they didn't have anything. So he'd just make things that they'd done. He's not a good person. All right, anyway, J. Edgar Hoover, in this document, says basically to the effect, I can't remember the exact wording, but he says basically, I'm concerned about our ability to convince the public that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. Okay? Think about that wording for a second. He uses the word convince. All right? I know that for a fact. He uses the word convince. Our ability to convince the public. Now, you'd say, now, when did he write this? Right Click Travel. Well, he wrote it before there was an investigation even going on. The conclusion had already been made. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. He did it by himself. And how are we going to convince the public that he did this by himself? Okay. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald was not a substantially good person either. He was horrible to his wife. By all accounts, from what she said, he was not a good husband. He was not a good father. He was not a good man in general. He was, he was a communist defector. He went to the Soviet Union. He married a Soviet. He came back here. He basically became an American again, an American citizen again. But then he wanted to defect again to Cuba during that whole situation with Castro. And he's the perfect patsy, is what I'm saying, regardless if he did it or not, or if he was involved or not. I certainly believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was involved to some extent. But do I believe that he was the lone shooter? Do I believe that he even took a shot at Dealey Plaza in 1963? I don't think so, because there's just too many witnesses there. Keep in mind, the shots are fired. Okay, the headshot that takes out Kennedy is fired. Within 90 seconds, a police officer enters the school book depository building, runs up to the second floor where he encounters Lee Harvey Oswald drinking a Coca-Cola, in a glass bottle, right? He asks another man standing there, who is this man? He says, this is Lee Harvey Oswald. He works here. He's one of my employees. He goes, fine. And they run up to the sixth floor, searching the floors to figure out, because they believe that it came from there, which is interesting because if you watch the Zapruder film by Abraham Zapruder, you see a large group of people running towards the grassy knoll. If you watch the Otis Nix film, you see them running towards the grassy knoll, and that's because the people out there in Dealey Plaza, dozens of them were convinced that it came from the grassy knoll. And that's why they ran over there. Police officers ran over there. A cop actually rode his motorcycle part way up the grassy knoll because he was under the assumption the shots came from the grassy knoll. Keep that in mind. Not everybody was in agreement that it came from the school book depository. No, they get up to the top of the sixth floor to the corner window and they find the shooter's nest. And they find the Carcano rifle, oftentimes mislabeled as a Mannlicher Carcano. It was not a Mannlicher. It's not even an accurate thing. It was an Italian Carcano, a World War II 6.5 millimeter Carcano, which was not an exceptionally good rifle, but it was not the piece of trash rifle that people would lead you to believe. A lot of people that are kind of in the conspiracy realm about this say the Carcano was not capable of the shot, and it wasn't, it was more than capable of that. It shot a very good round. A 6.5 millimeter bullet is a very flat shooting, very good bullet. It's coming back into popularity now, 6.5 caliber bullets, because they are so very good at flat shooting trajectory, long distance shooting. They're very accurate with minimal drop over long distance. They are good rounds. Now the Carcano itself, its bolt action setup was not the smoothest. It was not the best of World War II. I maintain that the best bolt-action rifle ever made for military use is a Lee Enfield, English-made rifle. I love Lee Enfields. I have Lee Enfield rifles. I love them. They are the longest-serving bolt-action rifle in history. All right, they're still in use in parts of India. They just really recently got rid of them by the Mounties in Canada. I mean, they are just, and they came out prior to World War I. I mean, they're good. All right, but regardless, the Carcano was capable of the shot that happened at Dealey Plaza. It was capable of the shots. The bigger question was, Lee Harvey Oswald capable of these shots? The simplest answer is yes and no. The simplest answer is yes. Could Lee Harvey Oswald, if everything worked out perfectly, made these shots? Yes. Could anybody have made these shots? No. All right. Now, the distance is not that far from the schoolbook depository window to the limousine that JFK was riding in. It's not that far. It's not the distance that's the problem. The problem is the sheer amount of pressure. You're not shooting a rabbit. You're shooting the President of the United States in this instance. Unfortunately, they're assassinating JFK. We are led to believe that the first shot fired by Lee Harvey Oswald was a total miss. The second shot hits JFK in the back, comes out his throat, goes into Connolly. There's a whole lot of problems with that in and of itself, but regardless, that's based off of autopsy reports if you read them. Not even touching that yet. The third shot is a headshot from behind. Even though every single footage of that headshot does not corroborate that. The first-hand accounts do not corroborate that. The blood splatter do not corroborate that. Does not support it. Okay. If you've ever been deer hunting and you shoot at a deer and you miss, the amount of pressure, people that hunt call it buck fever. You get this buck fever. You're so nervous when you see the buck or doe walk out. You're so nervous you can't even function. That's over a deer, okay? Imagine you're up there doing what Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly did, the amount of pressure that you're under, and then the first shot is a total miss, and you've got to rack that bolt and fire another round. It's just, the probability of it is just unlikely, and there was far better world-renowned marksmen that attempted to fire 3 shots in less than 6 seconds. Even if we give, let's say it's 7 seconds, guys were having trouble doing it in 10 seconds. 3 shots with 2 of them accurate. Some of the best marksmen in the world attempted it, and as far as I know, only one of them was able to achieve 3 accurate shots with that rifle in less than, I think it was 6.5 seconds or 6 seconds, and it took him 3 tries to do it. And this guy was a world-renowned marksman. It's kind of like, he's like the old-school version, if you're familiar with Jerry Miculek, who was a world-renowned fast-shooting pistol for Smith & Wesson, but he's also very good with rifles and shotguns. Or if you're familiar with some of the trick shooters for Winchester or any of the other people, they're all good with rifles, not just shotguns. And you're talking about feats that these people couldn't do. Yeah, Annie Oakley couldn't have done this. You know, like, it's obscene to think that the amount of pressure, the amount of nerves, the anxiety that you would have, the amount of adrenaline pumping through you, you're not going to be able to do this. Now, stranger things have happened. Do I believe that he was able to do this? I don't. I really don't. And I never have, because it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And it's so convenient that he's just abruptly killed Lee Harvey Oswald, 5 minutes later. And it's also convenient that they found a handprint on the Carcano immediately after he died, but they couldn't find it during the previous 2 days when they were desperately trying to find a fingerprint or a palm print on the rifle. It's convenient that he had to die first before they were able to find this handprint. Now, what am I suggesting? Am I suggesting that's a grand coup? It was a grand conspiracy theory. LBJ did it. Well, LBJ certainly didn't hurt from it, okay? But did he have anything? All right, so we're back. Sorry, my battery died. Where were we? All right. So, do I think that it was LBJ? Do I think LBJ has something to do with it? I don't know. LBJ, was not a particularly good man either. Good things came out of his presidency. A lot of horrible things came out of his presidency. We'll never know the extent of who was involved. There are people still alive right now that know. I can tell you that. There's people alive right now that probably partook in this, whether it was government related or it was completely private or whoever. There's people alive, or the sons or daughters of people that participate in this that know what happened. Now, are we ever going to know? Probably not. But there's enough information, enough research has been done, enough documentation exists to piece it rather together as far as how the events occurred at Dealey Plaza in 1963. And the most compelling argument that I have seen, and it's not perfect, is by a man named Josiah Thomas, who has wrote several books about it. He started researching this in, I believe, 1965. Immediately after it, he's wrote several books. His most recent one, I believe, is called Last Second in Dallas. And he puts forth a rather compelling argument. Not a perfect argument. There are problems with it, but the gist of it is rather compelling to me. And his main argument is that there was a shooter in the school book depository building. He doesn't really waste time arguing whether or not it was Lee Harvey Oswald or not. He just says there is a shooter in the school book depository. We know shots came from behind. We do know that because there's bullet fragments in the windshield. There's projection of blood and body parts, brain matter, as far forward as the hood ornament on the limousine. So we know that there was a shot to the head from behind. But what we do also know is there's a completely separate projection of blood and brain matter to the left rear that hit those officers, if you watch the Zapruder film, on those motorcycles, and also propelled a chunk of the president's skull 25 feet off into the grass. Okay? Those are two distinct, separate projections of blood. Two separate directions. So his argument is that the kill shot came from the front right, grassy knoll, wherever you want to say, came from the front right, hit him in the head, did the shot that you see in the Zapruder film, and he also argues that almost simultaneously, but not simultaneously, within 3/4 of a second, from what they can tell from the Otis Nix film and from the Zapruder film, there was another shot that hits him in the back of the head. And that's why you see, if you watch the Zapruder film, you see his head go back and to the left, but then it kind of snaps forward. His suggestion is that snap forward is from a rear shot, probably more than likely from the school book depository. So that would mean a minimum of 2 shooters at Dealey Plaza. The reason why I support that, or at least a notion very similar to that, is because the projection of blood doesn't lie. Okay, it does not lie. A shot to the back of the head, and more so also to the right back of the head, if we believe the Warren Commission, to the right back, is not going to propel a 2-inch by 2-inch skull fragment 25 feet back to the left. It's not going to do it because physics exists. It's not going to allow it. The people there were those police officers to the left of the motorcade, to the left of the limousine, were coated in blood. The 2 police officers to the right of the president, who were actually closer to the president, had none on them. Okay? So that's because the projection didn't go to the right. It went forward and it went to the left. So, I'm just saying. And if you're going, come on, Reclay Traveler, you're a conspiracy theorist, all this, like, just keep in mind, the government is not our friend. No matter what side you support, no matter what you believe, just remember, government is not our friend. Just remember that. No matter my political views, your political views are irrelevant. Just ask yourself, how many times do you think the government's lied in your lifetime over things that didn't matter? Okay? The government said that Agent Orange was okay. The government said that asbestos was safe to use on military ships. The government said, or lots of governments, not just ours, all governments, not just ours, but the government has said lots of things. They said the water was safe to drink at Camp Lejeune, right, where my buddy was stationed at during that whole situation out there. Now there's people suffering from that. So I'm just saying, if I make you uncomfortable talking about conspiracies and stuff, just remember, just go through history a little bit, just flip through it, and just point out just the ones that we know about, where the government has intentionally lied about things that negatively impacted the public. A president being assassinated is something that the people are going to lie about because they can't take responsibility for it, or they can't explain how they let this happen, or they couldn't solve what happened, so they just make it go away. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so chew on that. Watch a couple documentaries. There's a very good podcast about the JFK assassination called, I believe it's called The Enduring Mystery of the JFK assassination. It's on, I believe it's on pretty much anywhere where you listen to podcasts. He does an in-depth, step-by-step analysis of everything. I've just gotten to the part, almost through the autopsy, the number of things from doctors. Just look at the accounts of what doctors said about what they witnessed on JFK's body, and then look at what's reported in the Warren Commission. All right, I'm just saying, just keep an open mind. Not so open that your brain falls out, but keep an open mind. I'm Ray Clay Traveler. I'm going to stop rambling about conspiracy theories in JFK, and I'm going to go try to sleep now, and then we're going to come back as soon as I get the rear mainsail, and we're going to slam in this truck. I hope you have a pleasant tomorrow. I will catch you all shortly, and I'm going to film some more videos for y'all. This is a long video, but I hope y'all enjoy the ramblings, the history at the end, the stuff about the Willys. I hope you enjoy it. I will see you all shortly. I'm going to go charge some batteries so that we can keep providing y'all some content. I love you all, and may you have a pleasant tomorrow. And remember, Willys for life, whether the rear end's any good or not. All right? Get it.